What's up, dreamers? We're back at you with another video on how to make pinto beans in the Instapot. You can also do this inside the crock pot. The only difference is how long it takes to make. In the Instapot, you can make these in about 55 minutes. In the crock pot, I usually start mine at like 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and I usually set them to low until I go to bed. And then I set it to warm all through the night, and then when I get back up in the morning, I look and see what the beans look like, and sometimes I'll put them back on low to get them really, really hot, or I'll just leave them on medium until I'm ready to either serve them or make refried beans. Okay, so to start this off, I like to get rid of all of my ugly beans. This is time consuming, but it really does make a difference in the way your beans taste. And so I take ugly beans that are halved like this, and I set them aside. So this would constitute as an ugly bean. This would constitute as a good bean. I'll let that one slide. That is an ugly bean. My kids like to help me out with this particular job because they like finding ugly beans. I'll let that one go. So I just kind of pick them up and I make sure they look okay, and then I just toss them into my strainer, because you are going to want to wash your beans. Your beans will feel gritty from dirt and grime when they're fresh out of the bag. What I like to do sometimes is I like to get my beans home from the store, and I will separate them so that way when I am ready to go make a pot of beans, I don't have to separate the ugly beans from the good beans. I do like to get, like, that's an ugly bean. That's not a whole bean. I try to keep the beans whole. If not, they're going to come out kind of gritty and gross looking. I really like my beans to come out looking like beans de olla, which means they're nice and clean, and they have whole beautiful beans that have lots of great flavor. I will also, as I get further along in picking the beans, I kind of beat the beans up a bit by like picking them up and dropping them. And the reason why I do that is because if the beans are weak, they're gonna pop apart while you're doing that. And those are beans that you don't want inside your bean pot. And so I usually pick those out. So it's kind of like a double vetting process, if you will. You definitely want to get those beans that don't look like pinto beans, and you'll find them in here. They're really, really dark and they're dirty, and they just don't look appetizing. If you wouldn't want to eat it, definitely throw it away. It's better to throw away than to keep in the pile. Okay, this is a perfect example of when you get it up and you put it between your fingers. If you start to see that bean slide just a little bit, like so, they've got to go. This is how I rough them up. Just kind of really bang them around inside here to make sure that, see, one has already broken apart. Those are the ones you want to get rid of. And if some of the beans fall in while you're doing this, it's fine. Through your vetting process of beating them up, you'll be able to find the bad ones. That's why it's so important to do it with every few handfuls, because there are a few in the bunch that get by. when you get used to doing this for so long, you can see the seams and you'll just kind of know which ones are going to be bad beans and which ones are going to be good beans. I just wanted to show you guys, look at all of this is what you avoided putting inside your beans. That's all going to cause grittiness, and it's just not going to taste good because all of your garlic is going to go to infusing things that you're not going to want inside your beans. Just wanted to give you guys a little look at what bad beans look like and how many of them. Excuse the little fingers, they're helping me out today. Thank you. All of these beans are bad beans. Some of them are really unappetizing looking. A lot of them are half shells, quarter shells. But you want the beans that look really, really, really just gross and unappetizing, or ones that look underdeveloped, kind of like that are just real bumpy and gross looking, that don't even look like a pinto bean. You want to get those beans out. But those are the beans that you want to look out for. And double check them, because see, this was a good bean. This was a good bean that got mixed up in the bad beans. Alright guys, now we're on to the washing portion. You want to make sure that these are really, really soaked down good. Really get on there and move them around. I usually use the spray method, but I'm kind of going all over the place right now, so you can use this method. You really want all that gross stuff that's on those beans off of those beans. Alright guys, beans in the pot. I always fill my pot to just below a half. A hair below a half, or just at half, usually for a full bag of beans. Now if you're making these in the crock pot, this is where your steps would be a little different. I usually use a crock pot bag, and I put my crock pot bag in my crock pot, put the beans and the water in the crock pot, and then I proceed from there. Alright guys, that's about 4 cloves of garlic minced up. All of that goes right into about 4 strips of bacon, and I chop them up into like gentle, like good, like inch size squares. I like to spread them apart, if not they kind of cook together. You kind of want the bacon to get into all the nooks and crannies. Of the water, and not stuck together in one big lump, because all that bacon fat is what's going to give all the flavor to... Alright guys, we're at the seasoning part. I like to use garlic salt, and I make sure that I use a good generous portion of garlic salt. Here's where things can get dicey. Make sure that you're not over putting salt, because salty beans is what nobody wants, and so it's always easier to add than there is to take away, because you can't take it away unless you dilute it. So then I take about that much and sprinkle regular kosher salt. And then I also use some fresh ground pepper. Now at this point, if you wanted to, you could add a jalapeno to it. I do sometimes add a jalapeno to it, but for today we're going to leave it pretty basic. Okay, and from there we'll close up the pot. Okay, and now we're going to hit pressure cook. 55 minutes high and 55 minutes. And then of course you have to account for heating process. Once it's completely heated, then your countdown will start. I didn't know this before I got mine. And then when it's done, you're gonna have to wait for the depressurizing. So all in all, it's about 60 minutes to an hour and 10 minutes before you have fresh beans. If you were doing this in a crock pot, you would put everything in the pot, put the lid on, and set it on low until you go to bed. Put it on medium while you're sleeping. I'm sorry, not medium. You're gonna put it on warm while you're sleeping. And then in the morning, you can choose to either put it back up on low or keep it on medium all day long. My crock pot always stays pretty hot on medium. And then just, of course, keep stirring when you're in the crock pot. You don't have to worry about stirring in the Instapot. Okay, so now we wait.
All right, guys, while we're waiting for the Instapot to depressure, because it is done, I highly recommend keeping the keep warm sign on right here. Hit it, and it'll keep your beans warm for however long you want to. As whatever you're doing with your beans, if you're going to eat them or if you're going to refry them, it'll help keep your beans warm inside after they're done cooking. Alright guys, you know when it's almost done, when everybody in the house is salivating, we've already depressurized, and this is the final of what your beans will look like within an hour. From this point, you can refry them. You can use them for chili beans. You can eat them just the way they are, like this. We call them beans de olla. But you'll notice there's no grittiness in it. The beans look all pretty good. So yeah, Instapot beans. Your crock pot beans will turn out the same way also. Enjoy!